What's happening, everybody? So, the results are in from the dyno testing of whether or not removing your stock catalytic converters and replacing them with test pipes would yield any gains in horsepower or torque. Now, before I get started on the results, I want to send a big shout out to Alex Peitz and the crew over at Peitz Performance Tunes, as well as the students from the School of Automotive Machinists who are just finishing up their class with tuning and how to tune in HP tuners. The car was actually used as a tuning and a teaching aid for those guys today, so that was pretty cool. Kind of neat having your car picked and prodded over by a bunch of students. But let's get into those results. Now, is there anything really to report? No, there's not anything to report. I'd love to tell you that the car picked up power, but the fact of the matter is, from the first hit, it made the identical number that it made the last time it sat on the dyno. And that's no kidding. Its best pass that it ever made was 428 horsepower and I think 425 foot-pounds of torque or something along those lines. By the end of the day, the car was making 430 horsepower to the rear wheels, and well, it did go up a little bit in torque, 430 foot-pounds of torque, and this is on a Mustang dyno, which is an eddy current dyno. If you want to translate that into dyno jet numbers, basically just add 10%. You're looking at somewhere around 470, 471 horsepower and about 477, 478 horsepower, or rather torque, to the rear wheels on a dyno jet. So that will kind of bring you up to speed if you're used to dyno jet numbers. Now, we got to the bigger torque numbers by basically throwing a little bit more fuel at it. The initial tune that it had was a little bit lean, so threw a little bit of fuel at it and removed a little bit of the knock retard sensitivity. Basically, it was going into false knock and pulling a little bit of timing out of it, so just removed it, flattened out the torque curve a little bit. It was able to start off with more torque and carry torque a little bit farther. But that could have been done with the catalytic converters on the car. That's the funny thing about it. There is really no yield in power, except for in one spot. And it's not on the top end, obviously, or else horsepower would have gone up. It was in the bottom range. In fact, right at roll-on, the car was making about 4 or 5 foot-pounds of torque more consistently all the way across the board until about, 52, 5,300 RPM, and then the lines would just converge. So, is that worth the money? Hell no, it's not worth the money, nor is it worth the headache. Give you guys an idea what this cost me to do. The test pipes run right about $370. I had to get a set of O2 extensions because of the short ass harness that's on this car. That set me back another 80 bucks. Then some dyno testing and tuning cost, let's say, another 150 bucks. I'm into this already for quite a bit of money. And to yield nothing is not good, except for a little bit of noise. And that's another point that I wanted to bring up. I had wanted to do an in-car video to get you guys an idea for what it sounds like inside the car driving it. But try as I might, that just did not work out very well. The car basically sounds the same. If you've got one of these cars and you're driving it around right now with your stock catalytic converters, removing the cats will not change anything as far as how the car really sounds driving it around, especially with the windows up. You'd be hard pressed to even know anything was done to your car unless you did the work yourself or saw it done. No kidding. Now, yeah, if you roll the windows down, you'll get a little bit more noise out of it, but the fact is these cars have got a lot of, sound deadening material, things like that. So yeah, it basically sounds the same. So I apologize for not being able to get you a video like that. It's just I couldn't really put one together that would showcase any real difference in sound. But getting back to it, there is a video that I posted up with the car on the dyno. It was its third run. All the runs basically look the same, but that last run was with a little bit of knock retard sensitivity removed and with a little bit of fuel added. We're not talking much. We're like maybe 2% at the most. So again, yeah, the results are in. And is there going to be, a situation where removing the cats is actually beneficial? Well, yeah, there is actually. If you're putting your car on a road course, or if you're taking your car to the drag strip fairly often and you're hot lapping the car or whatever, number one, you'll save your catalytic converters from failing, and two, you'll at least not run into cat overtemp in your tune. So there's that to consider. But aside from that, nah, not even close to being worth the time. So how does everything that I have done to my car compared to a car with long tube headers? Because that's really more to the point, isn't it? I mean, that's kind of what spurred this whole testing thing on. Well, in talking to the guys over at Peitz Performance, because I actually brought it up, hey, why don't we try a set of long tubes? And everybody's going, no, don't even waste your money, don't waste your time. So where did this car start off from and where is it now? That'll give you an idea if you've got a stock car and you're thinking about putting long tubes on your car, what kind of gains would you expect to get with what I've got going on with this thing? And keep in mind, these numbers are just the same with or without catalytic converters. So don't sweat that detail. The car started off, it had a baseline dyno pull of 414 horsepower and 399 foot-pounds of torque. That's to the rear wheels on an eddy current dyno. Again, add 10% if you're used to dealing with dyno jet figures. We're sitting now at a consistent, and again, I don't like just throwing up the halo, pass on the dyno. A consistent 428, 429 horsepower and 431 foot-pounds of torque. That's an increase of about 14, 15 horsepower and about 30 foot-pounds of torque. Now, I don't know what long tube header manufacturers are advertising, but I can tell you this. This mod, whether it's just the tune or the tune with the test pipes and some of the porting or whatever I've done on the intake, will basically get you all but there compared to a car with a solid tune and a set of long tube headers. It won't be better, but it will be really close. Keep in mind, this testing is done under wide open throttle, and where long tube headers really shine is in making good partial throttle power. In other words, that mid pedal, 35 to 70% throttle, that's where long tubes will really show a gain, because that's where they actually will create more torque than your stock headers. But the reality is that through their testing and their tuning, and keep in mind, Peitz Performance is the top tier when it comes to Mopar tuning. They're only seeing about 10 more horsepower and maybe 10 foot-pounds of torque over what I'm making now. And that's an average. Some make maybe 1 or 2 more. Some make 1 or 2 horsepower and foot-pounds of torque less. So for $400, $500, give or take, running the test pipes, assuming you've already got a tune, is it worth it to spend the extra, I don't know, $1,200, $1,500 for a set of long tube headers? And if you can't do the install yourself, another 8 hours worth of labor, that's going to run you somewhere around $1,000 to get any better than what, running your stock headers and really your stock cats with a really good tune. Yeah, I don't think that it is. So at least we've answered a couple of questions here. One, does removing your stock catalytic converters gain you any real horsepower, torque, anything? No, not really. Not even in terms of sound, although it's louder now. Loud doesn't equal horsepower. It just means it's louder. Yeah, it picked up some torque down low, but not a ton. And not enough to really justify spending that kind of money. The other question is, having either no cats or cats and a really good tune worth, or is it better to just leave the car alone with that, or to go with long tubes, or to remove the cats, play around with the tune a little bit, and maybe get close? I don't know. That's for you to decide. But if it's my money that's getting spent, I don't really think it'd be worth it for me to go long tubes. And as big as I am into testing things, when I have the people that are in the know and do this stuff every single day tell me it would not be worth it, yeah, maybe it's not worth it. So those are the results in a nutshell. Want again to say thank you all very much for sticking with me during this project. I know I've been kind of throwing up videos and kind of dragging this out a little bit, but the results are in. Now comes track testing. I'm hoping that we're going to have some nice weather in the next couple of weeks, get this thing down to the drag strip, see what kind of improvement or not an improvement I can get on my ETs. Hope you guys are having a great one. Adios.